Ever wonder why we sometimes trust gut feelings but other times overthink things? Why do we splurge on things we don't need, yet overanalyze small choices? In today's video, we'll take you chapter by chapter through Daniel Kahneman's thinking, fast and slow, loaded with real-life examples. Stick around to uncover how your mind works and learn how to make smarter decisions. Chapter 1. The Two Systems. Daniel Kahneman introduces two modes of thinking. System 1, fast, instinctive, emotional, and automatic. System 2, slow, logical, and effortful. Example: you're driving a familiar route, listening to music, System 1. But when the GPS tells you to take an unfamiliar turn, you slow down and focus, System 2. Your brain switches between fast, automatic thinking and slow, deliberate thinking. System 1 is great for quick decisions, but it often leads to mistakes when accuracy is needed. Chapter 2. Attention and effort. System 2 requires effort, so it's lazy by default. Kahneman explains that we tend to rely on fast thinking, System 1, because slow thinking consumes more energy. This is why we often make mental shortcuts. Example: ever try to solve a math problem while someone's talking to you? That mental exhaustion is System 2 demanding effort. Our brain avoids effort when possible, making System 1 the default mode. This laziness is why multitasking lowers your productivity. Chapter 3. The Lazy Controller. Even though System 2 is more accurate, we avoid it unless absolutely necessary. For example, if I say 2 plus 2, you don't need to think. But solving 17 by 24 will require deliberate focus. And that's what Kahneman means by mental laziness. Example: you're reading an article, but halfway through realize you didn't absorb anything. Your brain was on autopilot. Kahneman points out that unless motivated, System 2 won't take charge, allowing System 1's quick and often faulty decisions to prevail. Chapter 4. The Associative Machine. Our minds love patterns. System 1 forms associations automatically. This is why certain smells can trigger memories. But these quick associations can sometimes lead us astray. Example: you hear the word beach, and images of sand, waves, and sunshine come to mind. This automatic pattern recognition is helpful, but it can also mislead us. We might assume things are related when they're not. Chapter 5. Cognitive ease. When things feel easy, we believe them to be true. This is called cognitive ease. If we encounter a familiar idea, we're more likely to trust it, even without questioning the facts. Example: you're more likely to trust familiar brands or re-elect politicians with recognizable names. When things feel easy or familiar, we trust them, even if the content isn't reliable. Chapter 6. Norms, surprises, and causes. Our brains crave stories and coherence, even with limited data. Kahneman shows how we often jump to conclusions, forming strong opinions based on incomplete information. System 1 creates expectations based on previous experiences, and when something unexpected happens, we feel surprised. This chapter explains how our minds automatically create stories to make sense of the world. Example: if it suddenly rains on a sunny day, you feel surprised and might say, "That's weird," even though weather can change unpredictably. Our brains try to make sense of the world by setting expectations, which System 1 can quickly adjust when things don't fit the norm. Chapter 7. A Machine for Jumping to Conclusions. Example: if someone wears a lab coat, you might assume they're a doctor or scientist without checking further. We tend to make quick assumptions based on stereotypes, often leading to errors. Chapter 8. How Judgments Happen. Ever judge someone based on first impressions? That's System 1 at work. This chapter explains how we make quick judgments, often based on biases like the halo effect, where one positive trait influences our entire opinion. Example: you meet someone who's kind to you and assume they must be a good person in general, the halo effect. Kahneman warns how these first impressions can cloud objective judgment. Chapter 9. Answering an easier question. When faced with a tough question, we often answer an easier one instead without realizing it. Kahneman calls this substitution. For example, instead of evaluating a politician's policies, we might judge them based on charisma. Example: instead of asking, "Is this candidate qualified?" we might answer, "Do I like this person?" When we encounter complex questions, we unconsciously answer simpler ones. Chapter 10. The Law of Small Numbers. Here, Kahneman warns about the dangers of small sample sizes. We tend to draw conclusions from too little data, leading to wrong assumptions. Example: a small restaurant receives 5 positive reviews, and you assume it must be amazing. Drawing conclusions from small samples often leads to faulty assumptions.